Thank you very much, Barbara. And thank you, Gareth, for outing me as a SCAS virgin. I really do appreciate that. Any other virgins in the room? No, thought not. So I'm gobsmacked. This is the first time I've come up here. I've heard so many wonderful things about this meeting. Really looking forward to today. My name is Andy. I am a Yorkshireman with a Scottish name, so free meeting, free food, that really does appeal to me. Thank you so much for that, Gareth. Although I checked my DNA, I am actually 6% Scottish. I'm also 6% Viking, obviously, and 20% Irish, and more percentage than I care to admit French as well. So you can guess that I'm a mongrel from various sort of people visiting the Sceptred Isles. My invite is to talk about the past, but I'd like to sort of link that in a little bit with the future as well, because Scotland has always been on my radar. I'm the immediate past president of Resuscitation Council UK, and we even appointed a Scotsman as our chief executive officer. We were that desperate. But we have always been aware of the Scottish excellence. And I just want to share a little bit of that with you in a few minutes. So what is the position of Scotland when compared with the rest of UK and with the rest of Europe? Let's do a little bit of data first of all. I know that we all like numbers and we all like a bit of data. So the immediate comparator is to look to something called the Eureka 3 database. This is a Europe-wide database of 48 countries, looking at 44 countries, looking at the data around survival from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. This particular database was run in 2022 over 3 months, and it's a registry of 28 out of those 44 countries. Now, it's very difficult to do comparisons because a lot of countries have got different ways of inputting data, of what they actually say is legitimate data as well. So there were less than 50% of countries with complete data sets. But if we look at those countries where the data is almost complete or complete, what does it tell us? So in 2022, the 30-day survival from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest was 7.1% across Europe. In England, it was 7.3%. But what about Scotland? 8.7%. So immediately, you can see that you are well above average, well above England as well, which always matters. So you're obviously doing something really good. And that's my first and most important message, is that Scotland is leading the way and has got a phenomenally better survival rate than the vast majority of Europe. But there's this bar, there's this mythical decimalized bar of 10%. And it's something that we do tend to get very obsessed with. So you'll see that the vast majority of those survival rates hover around or mostly just below 10% 30-day survival. There are a few outliers, and clearly Scandinavia is and always has been well ahead of us. And we're constantly looking towards Scandinavia to understand why. But the vast majority are hovering between 8 and 10%. And when we look at your own report from SCAS, this is one of the big infographics. 1 in 10 survive to leave hospital after out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Now, it's an important thing that you can only improve what you measure. That's the mantra that comes out of the Global Resuscitation Alliance. And it is true. We need data. We need numbers to be able to improve. And simple messaging is good, and we like the number 10. And in journals, how many of you have either seen this or indeed written this? Survival rates from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest remain stubbornly low in the UK, with fewer than 1 in 10 people surviving. It's a number that crops up again and again and again. That's okay. It is one that's easy to remember. It's simple messaging, but in many ways, it's almost shaming people to improve because we can't get just above that 10%. And the limitation of this is the needle doesn't actually shift that much year on year, and it can feel frustrating that we never top that 10%. So today is all about shift happening. We're going to talk about how shift has happened, but how do we make shift happen in the future? Well, there's good news here, because like the venerable Scottish Time Lord, you've already done the things that are impacting in the past that are impacting in the future. So what sort of things have you already been doing? Well, first of all, having a strategy. I know it sounds very trite, but strategy is absolutely essential. And the work that you've been doing over the last 10 years and beyond, finding ways to improve survival, that investment is really starting to show now. One of the things that you should be absolutely proud of is you were the first of the 4 nations to make CPR training mandatory in schools. This is probably one of the single most effective interventions that you will ever have. You are now training the future. You are training people how to manage a cardiac arrest from school age. And this was back in 2019. Westminster followed a few months later, and then Wales, and then finally Northern Ireland. So I'm particularly proud of the fact that we in the UK now have a mechanism for teaching every child CPR, and that is fundamental to improving survival in the future. Linkage in with Good Sam. Again, it's this multifaceted approach to being able to improve outcomes from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. One of my other hats is I'm co-chair of the ILCOR's World Restart a Heart initiative, so true global domination. We had a meeting last night, and it was amazing to hear from all around the world the various examples of how we can improve bystander CPR rates. Heard from India, where we saw a picture of a pitch with 2,000 mannequins, 20 and 10 rows of 20 mannequins. Times that by 20 rows of 200 mannequins. They were training 20,000 people in one day. They've subsequently heard that the Guinness record is 24,000. So they're going to go back and do it again and do 30,000 people in one day. So that's your challenge. But I mentioned that I was up in Scotland, and Scotland has had a phenomenal history of engaging with Restart a Heart as well. So again, these are all bits and pieces. Your work about making PADs count, the PAD database that you've got up here, the PAD map, all of these are creating ripples. Ripples that will have an impact into the future on cardiac arrest survival. But it's not just about data and numbers, it's about people. We focus on data a lot, but every person who survives is a valuable person. And I just want to briefly talk to you about a good friend of mine, because personal stories always really anchor it back down to where it matters. On the left is a gentleman called Neil Davidson. He lives locally to me. He survived a cardiac arrest in 2017. But for now, this is not his story. I want to tell the story of his son, Ollie, who stood on the other side. So Ollie learnt CPR in a local school in 2008. So that's even before the campaigns to get CPR onto the curriculum. It was a very forward-thinking school. Once he left school, he emigrated to Australia, where he worked in the events management business. He came home to visit his parents, and on the last night, they went out for a lovely pub meal. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he was woken to hear hammering on the wall. It was his mother who was hammering to get him to come through. because she'd woken up to find Neil breathing differently. Ollie went through and found that his father had had a cardiac arrest. Now, Neil is not a small man, but they managed to drag him onto the floor. Ollie did CPR for 15 minutes before the ambulance arrived. Now, their house is hidden in plain sight. I couldn't find it when I went to go and visit them. And it was a horrible night. It was raining. And essentially, it was 15 minutes before he had the defibrillator applied, and he survived. In 2019, I was invited to speak at a conference in Sydney, and Ollie was working just up the road in events management. And he came and told his story, and Neil joined us by video link. And it was a phenomenal moment. And afterwards, I noticed that Ollie was chatting to a friend of mine who's a professor of nursing in Sydney. Move on a year. Ollie's at nursing school. Total change of career. Really enthused. He's now a cardiology nurse. What about Neil? He's gone on to do amazing things. He's set up a local community CPR fund. He funds over 1,000 people a year to learn how to do CPR. He's contributed to numerous public access defibs, and this is him last week at Windsor Castle with his wife when he was awarded an MBE. We know for a fact that 6 lives have been saved directly due to the activities of Neil. So, 6 people who've been brought back to tax-paying status because of what Neil did. But that's only because of what Ollie did. And who knows, in Ollie's career as a cardiology nurse, the number of people that whose lives will be saved because of what he does. But this is where the shift happened. He was taught CPR at school. Because he was taught CPR at school, 9 years later, he put those skills into practice for his father, because we know that 80% of cardiac arrests happen at home, who has then gone on to save numerous people. It's not just ripples, it's waves. And that's why I'm saying the work that you have done in the past to train even just one child has got such a profound effect moving forward, and the benefits you can't even predict. So let's just briefly go back to the data again. And this is the graph from the report from you guys showing the 30-day survival trends over the years, particularly since you started doing the work here. And this is what you see. It's getting better year by year. Yes, we had the COVID years, and that did impact. And then we had this blip, which I'd love to know what happened when it went up to 10.9%. But essentially, year on year, things are getting better. And that's because of the things that you've already instigated. But it's not just about stats, it's about real people. And the number of survivors per year because of what you've been doing. So before this sort of strategy was put in place, 225 a year, now 338. So that's an increase in numbers of 113. And I don't know, how many people do we have here today? 300. So that's the number of people you see in this room today. That's the number of people who are currently surviving per year in Scotland because of the work that you're doing. And it's very easy just to think about the increment, but it's not. This number, every year, new, different people who are surviving. And that is awesome. But we come back to that 10% thing. We come back to that ceiling. How do we break through that ceiling of 10%? What shift needs to happen to get us above 10%? And I know that you've aimed to have 15% survival. Again, we're going along the decimalisation route. We like numbers in 10s and 5s. But here's a thought. What if you don't get above 10%? Does that mean that you've failed? Well, I put it to you that the work that you're doing, it may be that this year we have 338 people who survive. Next year, we have 338 who survive. But what if next year's 338 have got, on average, a better outcome in terms of quality of life? So it's not just about looking at the big numbers, but it's looking at whether we're actually resuscitating people to a really good quality of life. And it's important that we look after survivors and that we optimize their recovery, because it's not just a simple binary switch where somebody survives. There are challenges. There are physical, there are cognitive, there are psychological challenges. And if we can improve the outcome of survivors, either through the care that we give or by optimizing the resuscitation so they get instant CPR of high quality, very swift defibrillation, whether it's due to a pad or whatever, or getting the emergency services quicker, then maybe, even if we don't top the 10%, we can make sure that the quality improves within that cohort. And I just want to briefly mention that yesterday, Resuscitation Council UK introduced a call to arms to help survivors called The Weakest Link, and it's on the Resus Council website. And it's just really reminding all the policymakers, we need to give every survivor the right chance for survival. So some closing comments. Shift has happened for the good. You have already trained a sleeper cell, an army of people who are out there waiting to be activated to do the right thing when they come across a cardiac arrest. And that's very important. They may never use their skills. They may use it in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but they have those skills for life. So never underestimate the power. There is no problem with aiming high. Please aim for as much improvement as possible, but don't set yourself up for a fail. It's okay to shift the dial by 1. So even if you're aiming for 15%, going from 10% to 11%, that will still see a significant number of people whose lives will be saved in addition to now. So break that curse of decimalisation. Be satisfied with 11% en route. Most importantly, don't be complacent. Keep doing the hard work that you're all doing. And remember, it's not just about the quantity in the number of people who survive, but it's also about the quality as well. And just one last thought on a hugely important strategy for success. Please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is that on time?
Take questions or?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Andy. That was a fantastic start to the morning, and uncharacteristically, you're 5 minutes behind. I think we started early, probably because I didn't see all the things I was supposed to see.
That's unlikely.
But so we do have time for a couple of questions, if anyone has a question for Andy.
Nope,
Don't be shy. Yep, over here. Thank you.
What is it they're doing in Norway?
1 in 4. I would love to. I thought you were going to ask what it's doing in Norway that results in me having 6% Viking genes. I think it was not what they did in Norway, it's what they came over and did in the UK that created that. They've been ahead of the game for a while in terms of, first of all, they put CPR onto the national curriculum. Sorry, Scandinavians. I don't want to conflate Norwegians with Danish, with Swedish and Finns, but as a whole, their culture, they've been looking at this a lot sooner than we were. And they've been doing the right things around putting CPR onto the curriculum. But there must be a load more things. And I know that there's been a lot of work done. And it's not just Scandinavia. Seattle, they've been doing phenomenal work for many, many years. It takes a system to save a life. This knowledge that it's not just about one unique element, but it's just getting all the bits of the jigsaw in at the same time. It's getting the holes in the Swiss cheese aligning so that you can see the planets aligning through the holes in the Swiss cheese. It's getting every single factor together and getting those different stakeholders to work together. And that's why this is phenomenal. The program for today, the sort of things you're going to hear today, really look across the board of different stakeholders. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be improving the individual elements, but also how those all tick together to improve outcomes. So yes, we will catch up. It has to be said that some of that data, you'll see the confidence intervals were quite large, which does imply a certain amount of inaccuracy of data. So we want to see, just like here in Scotland, some really sort of good data that shows that things are improving.
Thank you. Great question. Can people hear at the back without the mic, or shall we wait for the mic? There's a mic coming. Here we go.
Does the research take into consideration the appropriateness of CPR as an intervention for these patients? So is it 10% of patients with 50% of them not being an appropriate candidate?
Yeah, and I think one of the things, that's a hugely good question. I think one of the things that has probably helped in terms of survival rates, it's not so much what we do, it's what we don't do. So we've got better now at having conversations with people about what their preferences are. We've got better at things like conversations around DNA CPR, so that we're no longer just jumping on the chest of every single person who has a cardiac arrest. So that does improve the denominator to some extent, because if you're no longer sort of jumping on the chest of somebody who has quite clearly been dead for 12 hours, then that will improve the statistics as well. But it's not just about statistics, it's about the dignity and it's about the appropriateness of doing an intervention in the right group of people. And if somebody has expressed a preference and has a DNA CPR or some sort of living will, we need to be understanding and respecting that. So I think the data is a lot cleaner nowadays because we're more cognizant of those conversations, and it's important to have those conversations within the healthcare system.
Thank you. That's our time to move on to our
Have a fantastic day. I'm really looking forward to the remainder of the presentations. Thank you for inviting me.